Welcome to Good Grief, the podcast where resilience meets reality. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Malone. In this podcast, we delve deep into the stories of individuals who've triumphed over tragedy, adversity, and trauma. In every episode, we bring you raw and honest narratives from guests who faced life's most challenging moments head on. Through candid conversations, they share their journeys of resilience, shedding light on the strategies, mindset shifts, and support systems that empowered them to rise above their darkest hours. Join us as we explore the profound depths of human resilience and discover how, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and yes, good grief. Okay, listeners, thank you so much for joining me today. My guest is Justin Shaw. He is a mystical Canadian, stand-up philosopher, and sourcery, passionate about empowering people to reclaim their self-worth and manifest their highest potential. Following a long battle with substance abuse, PTSD, depression, and anxiety disorders, Justin, a former stand-up comedian, experienced firsthand the redeeming power of source energy after an incredible experience he'll never forget. I love that. So tell us a little bit more about you and what you're doing and what all this mystical stuff is.
Yeah. So good to be here. Thank you for having me. So I wrote a book about sorcery, and whenever you kind of heard the word sorcery, and probably the first thing that came to mind was, wizards and Gandalf,
Magic
and
wand.
yeah. You can leave your hooded robes and magic wands in the closet. You don't need any cauldrons or Eye of Newt for this kind of sorcery. This is I spell with a U, so it's kind of distanced itself a little bit from the magical side of it, but it's still kind of magic. It's real magic. It is using source energy to heal and thrive and create new lives, healing and thriving. That's the center and the focus of sorcery. So it's spelled with a U. So it's sorcery, using source energy. And explaining source energy to someone is a bit like explaining the concept of water to fish. It's
Okay.
difficult. So it is something that surrounds us at all times and gives us life and feeds us, and it is there and we can't see it. It has been known by hundreds of names throughout millennia. It's everything. It is Star Wars is the best example. And the source is the force. It is a field of energy made up by all living things that surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. So there's a lot of pop culture in my book. There's a lot of humor, of course. I grew up in front of a television, so it just once this experience happened to me, it was like I plugged into this field, and I realized I had been in airplane mode my whole life. And once this airplane mode was disabled, I now have access to this field of information, and it came through me and used my subconscious, my experiences, my humor, and came up with this new system of healing. And it's very exciting. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about it. Yeah.
Well, tell us how it works. I mean, how are you tapping into this and how are you using that to heal yourself?
Yeah. So here in America, we have a very good hold on acute injuries, how to heal acute injuries. If you have an acute injury, go see a doctor. But there's this whole other side of medicine called chronic injuries that we don't have such a good handle on because, it is the mind, body, spirit. It is the trifecta there. And they've only just kind of come around that the mind and body are connected. Like just recently, within the past 10, 20 years, like, okay, there's a connection there. There's something like, but it's new. And there's still no spirit is not, nope, that is not part of what we're doing. And without that, chronic disease will never be cured, only maintained. It is only a focus on the symptoms, okay? The core issue is not dealt with. It would be like if 100 people went to lunch every month and 90 of those people got deathly ill every single time. The Western medicine approach would be dole out anti-nausea pills to all 90 of those patients instead of just looking into the core issue, which is the quality of the food. So spiritual bankruptcy is that core issue for chronic disease, and that can be mental, emotional, physical. That it just anything labeled chronic that's consistently imbalance of energy. And just like you go to a doctor, like I said, doctors are fantastic. If I break my arm and it's sticking out, of the skin, don't send me to an acupuncturist. That's not going to achieve the level of healing I need. But once the bone is set, the doctor's part is done. Now the body heals itself, but the bone needs to be set and go to that doctor. Well, the energy healing sorcery is like setting the emotional / spiritual bone so that you heal. The body heals itself. But in order for you to heal yourself from things like grief and trauma, you have to set the emotional bone in order to allow the body to heal itself. Otherwise, it's never going to heal. So that is what this is about. That is my mission here, is to go along and try to set as many emotional bones as I can and allow people to heal themselves, because unfortunately Western medicine just simply isn't going to cut it when it comes to that. They don't know what to do. It's all about the symptom. It's like, if you have depression, I don't know, go talk to a therapist. If you have anxiety, go take some pills. If you have alcohol issues, go to meetings. If you have drug issues, go to other meetings. Everything is dealt with in completely separate manners, but it's all one core issue. So that's what I want to get at, and that's what I want to get out there and help. It is setting the emotional bone and allowing yourself to heal and come out of it, like I have, which is fantastic.
So is your book kind of like a workbook, a self-help book? I mean, how does a person utilize the information you've got in there?
Yeah, it's a system I kind of developed. I've had all kinds of issues, traumatic issues, and I've had anxiety and depression and substance abuse issues and all kinds of things. And, I've tried everything, right? So, I went to AA for quite a long time, and they kind of have the 12 steps. And I saw something that helped people, but I have some issues with AA. The world is a world of gray. A sorcerer understands that there is no this or that. So, and something like AA is very helpful, but it can also be kind of disempowering. So it is in that gray zone. But I kind of took the idea of the steps, and I had to organize how to do this and these thoughts in my mind and all these things. So I came up with 13 rungs, because, to move forward is good, but moving up is better, because a bird has a better perspective on things than the worm. So, and there's 13 for a very specific reason. One of the most important things of sorcery is called shadow work. It's the first rung. And it is both kind of questioning the things you hold true that have maybe limiting beliefs. And it's 13 because the number 13 is known, in particular in America, as a very unlucky number, to the point where we don't have 13 floors on hotels.
Mhm.
It's kind of silly. And none of that is true. The number 13 historically is a very lucky number. It's associated with the divine and will bring good luck and prosperity to those who embrace it. So the idea that 13 is unlucky is completely false. So it's about starting to question things that you may have held true. And in that is the beginnings of the rest of the rungs, but that's why there's 13. Yeah, a workbook would be kind of fun to do next. Book's only been out 4 or 6 weeks. This whole thing is brand new. I'd like to use this as kind of the seed to plant the career tree, as it
Yeah,
were. So yeah, workbook would be kind of fun to kind of come up with a workbook for, but it's not like what you're saying is a workbook, but it
right.
is a map, it is a guide, but it is your journey. I mean, a map is no good if you don't follow it. So, but it is definitely a map.
So are the 13 rungs kind of like I know you mentioned like AA, like with the steps, and they're done in a certain order in AA. Are these rungs done in a certain order in your design, or is it kind of like grief where you can go through the various phases more fluid? So how does
Yeah.
that work with the rungs?
It's more fluid. And that's one thing I like about it. That we have these two sides, it's religion versus science, and they're both very strict, rigid things. And spirituality falls right in the middle of those two. So this is like that. It is a fluid kind of thing. They're in an order, and some of the rungs kind of make sense of where they're placed at. They kind of came to me in this order, but they're not specifically in a rigid order. And the order of importance is completely subjective, because, some things that I mentioned there may come more natural to you, and some things may be more demanding of your attention. So the order of importance is completely subjective. Like, one of the rungs is health is wealth, and physical health has been pretty easy. I don't need to concentrate, already programmed for, physical health now, but, there's other aspects to it that I need to pay closer attention to, that I know I need to work on. So it's all very subjective. It's the importance.
Yeah, it's kind of, again, I'm liking it. It's sort of the phases of grief. Really, some steps and some phases take longer than others, depending on the
Mhm.
person and the event and what they're grieving and how long they've been grieving and so on and so forth. So I certainly
Exactly.
get that. Yeah, that's for sure. So tell us about soul sickness. I've got a note here. Ask him about soul sickness. So what does that mean, and how is that lens useful?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it all comes down to. Like I said, the spiritual bankruptcy, soul sickness, it is the cause of why society is why it is. I mean, it comes out in so many different ways. I mean, it's so unique to how individual soul sickness will manifest itself.
Hmm.
And certainly grief is a part of that, but it's about curing that soul. Like I said before, it was just, like setting that emotional bone to be able to heal itself. My soul sickness came out in various ways. Like I said, anxiety, depression, substance abuse disorder, ADD, all these like chronic conditions are soul sickness, forms of soul sickness, in my opinion. And the symptoms can only be managed by Western medicine, never cured. And, part of that is, a cured individual lines no one's pockets, right? So there is some of that there too with it. I don't like to lump everyone in there and all doctors. It's that world of gray that is, the world is not neither black or white. The medical community is both helpful and destructive. It's just,
Yeah.
where is it? So it's,
Yep.
our minds like to put things in neat little boxes. It is or it is not. And that's just not the way how things work. So it is right in the middle. And that's the kind of focus for the sorcery, becoming a sorcerer.
Gotcha. So I'm curious to know, I know with your background with the comedian work, so how do you have laughter and levity? I know you've got that kind of as a tool for healing and so on, but how does that mesh in with the sorcery and so on?
Yeah, the book is very light and it's very funny. There's jokes throughout the book to make people laugh because, I believe that we're only going to accept, believe, and surrender to the energy we're currently in. So, like if there's a bad argument happening, your other partner does not want to hear how beautiful they are. That's not going to be accepted. They want anger and they want it thrown back at them so they can justify the way they're feeling and get more high from the emotion.
Right.
Right. So we are only going to accept, believe, and surrender to the emotion that we're currently in. So in order to bring some levity and, trauma healing and healing these things, it doesn't have to be serious all the time. When you put someone in that mood, now they're in a mood to kind of, listen to what you're saying and be more open and laugh. Now you're in a different energy. So I make sure, especially at the beginning, there's really humorous story about when I was in rehab with rapper DMX. I open the book that way and I make it really funny. So it's like, here's who I am, here's what I've been through, and let's start this off in a light mood. It's because trauma can be pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So my background in stand-up comedy, I never got paid for my comedy, and I stopped it a long time ago because once I kind of got sober in the very beginning there, I realized that these are not healthy places for me and they were triggering and I didn't like doing it. So it was just like, this is not for me. But now I get to use all that I thought I was going to use before. I get to use it now. So there was a reason for it. And it's exciting. I get to use all the comedy all over again. But
Yeah.
humor is an extremely big part of the book. Yeah. Humor and pop culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And humor, I mean, I mentioned this before we started recording. I think humor is very healing as well. It definitely can lighten things up. And some of the conversations we tend to have, especially about grief, aren't very light. So it's like to kind of, make a little bit lighter of it so that people can talk about it and without it being just such a, I don't know, downer, drain, whatever you want to say. Weight, I guess is the term I'm going to use there.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. So I have a note to ask you, what does being a hope healer mean to you?
A hope dealer.
Hope. Oh, you're right. I'm
So
right. I can't read. Right. Hope dealer.
yeah, hope dealer. Yeah, yeah. From dope dealer to hope dealer is kind of where my life has led me. I was a lousy dope dealer though. I'll tell you what. I might have been the only person in the history to lose money dealing drugs. I did them all. So I was a really lousy dope dealer, but I'm a much better hope dealer. So that is, that's about bringing hope. I've been through the ringer. I've been there. I know what it's like. Some childhood issues, and my trauma was more. There's big T, capital T trauma, which are kind of knee jerking traumatic events that happen. That happened to me more in adulthood. But then there's a lower T trauma that's just like a slow burn kind of neglectful kind of trauma, and that's what I went through. I lived, was not a home that where emotion was expressed in any sort of way. I mean, we didn't talk about anything at all, ever. I most of my time was my mom and she was alone in her room and I was alone in my room, and that was the house. So it was a very emotionally neglectful kind of situation where just the word love wasn't mentioned. And she did love me. She was, I mean, I don't, I love my mom, and she did love me, but she did not have any idea how to express it, how to say it. She didn't, wasn't good with hugging. She certainly never said the word love. I struggled with it for a long time, and because it was never said. So the concept of it just really has, gotten to me that recently that it's like, oh, okay, this is what love is, really in the past, few years that I've been doing this this healing, and I had this, event with Source happen, and now I know what love is, but I haven't known it really up until 2 to 4 years ago. I've never known what it is. So,
Yeah.
and now it's exciting. Now it's like, oh, this is love. Oh, okay, all right. Well, now I want to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So that's what being a hope dealer is all about.
I love it. I'm gonna guess, and the different conversation. I'm gonna guess your mother probably didn't grow up with that positivity as well, which is kind of, yeah,
You got it. Yeah. We are all just walking reflections of the environment in which we were raised. And once you understand human condition better and understand people better, they don't piss you off or offend you, or you just understand people are just expressions of their, I mean, we're all running a program, and it's just,
yeah,
there's no reason to get offended. That's just who people are. And my mom is the same way. She
yep.
grew up in that atmosphere of cold, emotionless atmosphere, and she turned her into a cold, emotionless person. It's
She
just
knew.
how it is.
But she knew I grew up
Um,
that way, so that's why I said that. I thought to myself, I bet you I have some little common with your mom. So it's like
yeah.
that whole thing where it's like it doesn't come naturally. However, your book probably speaks to this too. You can change some of that, so you can change how you look at different things and how do I be more positive about this, or how do I use this energy to be not just healing but also be a better person, whatever term you want to use along those lines.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You can definitely healing and change is amazing. But when you cross the river of change, there is a strong undercurrent of discomfort that you're going to go through,
Yeah.
and that is something that anyone who wants to change is going to go through, and it's due to just their neuroplasticity is our mind has the ability to heal and change, but it's really difficult and hard. If you think about neuroplasticity and what fires together in the mind wires together, and it's a bit like the trails here in Arizona. We have these very well-trodden, planned out trails. They're very easy to walk through. But if you go off that trail, you're going to have stickers in your feet, you're going to have scrapes on your legs, and you might get lost. But like once you kind of find your way and then you go down that path more and more, then it becomes the path.
Right.
But it's really difficult in the beginning. It usually takes, yeah, it takes a lot of effort and usually a machete to get through that first
Yep.
neural pathway, but keep going down it and it becomes the central part. But everything is changeable, moldable, healable. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand that. I think humans in by nature are not comfortable with change. I mean, my doctorate's in leadership. I could talk to you all kinds of things about how to get people to do different things, but when it comes to real change, it's very difficult unless you really maneuver people in a way that they feel buy-in on is really kind of what I'd come down to on that one. And you have to be doing something like what is the saying? How much to make something into a habit? You have to do it for what is it, 3 months or something like that, and then something can become a habit. So that whole thing with the change part and being comfortable with change. I would imagine that's kind of one of the messages that's also in your book is I'm not thinking of it this way, and now I've got to think of it a different way. So I've become comfortable with that change and kind of, I don't know, learning more about myself or something along those lines, which again can make people uncomfortable as well.
Yep, that's one of the rungs actually is comfort in discomfort. It is
Oh,
having comfort in uncomfortable situations. They have a saying in the military, embrace the suck, like just soak it in because the thing with suffering, the thing with pain is when you focus on it, it gets bigger and you can turn pain into suffering, but pain doesn't necessarily have to turn into suffering if you
mhm.
have the right perspective on it. So yeah, comfort in discomfort is definitely a big part because
Yeah,
there's, as nice as our comfort zones are, nothing ever grows there. It's just the way it is. And there's a great kind of parable I heard about a lobster, and lobster grows and it has this hard, rigid shell, but it's a very soft, malleable animal. But then it grows a shell, and
mhm.
then it lives for a while, and then it starts to feel very uncomfortable, and that is the sign that it's time for the
Well,
lobster to grow. It
yeah,
go yeah, it goes behind a rock, make sure it doesn't get caught. It leaves the shell and then grows a whole new one. But the lobster lived in America, it would just get some Xanax and it would never grow. So discomfort is something we need to get comfortable with.
yeah, yeah, because we're all going to go through it, and you get stuck, like you mentioned, you get stuck. And I was watching a documentary on lobsters not too terribly long ago, and it was about when they die, it's because they don't shed. It's like they could live forever if they just would keep shedding and so on and so forth because they're growing. But if they don't shed, they die. So I kind of was like, oh, I get that.
Yeah.
So where can people find your book? Is it online, kind of located in all the different bookstores? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely on the online ones. It's on Amazon. If you just search for my name, Justin L. Shaw, it should pop up. If you title in the Sourcery 101 and spell it it'll autocorrect and send you to a book
Yeah.
that apparently is about becoming a better wizard, which
Oh.
does sound interesting to read, but that's not my book. So search for my name, Justin L. Shaw, on it, and it's in there. And then I just got on Instagram last week. I've been off social media for 4 years. I just deleted it all. Like I just kind of got off and just for my mental health, I was just done. But last week I got back. I haven't even told my friends and family about it. So if you're on Instagram, it's Sorcerer with a U _13. I'm on there. Follow me. I'll follow you back. So if you want an extra follower, because it's like being brand new to the social media world again. And I realize I have to get back on it. So it's all good.
It can be a time suck, that's for sure. But it also is a way to keep up on what people are doing that I wouldn't normally even see again.
Yeah.
So,
it's sort of the gray zone, right? It can be helpful and destructive. I was too far in the destructive camp. Now I'm gonna make sure that it's helpful to me. So it's that gray zone.
Moderation. Yes, for sure. For sure. Well, we will put a link to where people can find your book and a picture of it and so on, so people know what they're looking for and don't accidentally pick up the one about becoming a better wizard. Although, again, that one does
sound interesting. I know it does.
So what's next for you? I mean, I was like, is this going to be like a workbook? I think that could be helpful, but maybe webinars. What are you thinking about doing next?
Yeah, I mean, sky's kind of the limit. I'm constantly thinking about and kind of creating where I want to go. I'd love to kind of do tours and stand-up philosophy kind of stuff, like where I'm kind of mixing the two. And there's certainly, webinars and stuff. And I have no idea. This was a download for me. Is like, start here.
Right,
This book, people need to know who you are before you do anything else. So I wrote this book and I've got kind of an idea for the next one. I'm not a trained shaman, but I would like to go. They have training for that, and Sourcery 102 to kind of my process of training to the shamanistic arts would be a really fun second book, and maybe a Sourcery 101.5 with being a workbook. I think that's a good idea too, because I could certainly guide people and make it better. So I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I do plan on progressing and making the hope dealer thing a career.
Yeah, contributing and helping people, which all this does. So that's fantastic. Well, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Justin, before we go?
I'd like to make one statement. I thought about this the other day, and the world may be against you, but the universe is for you, and that's all that really matters. Mm-hmm. I'd like to leave it there.
I think that's wonderful. I appreciate that. Well, thank you again for coming on my show. It was a wonderful pleasure to meet with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Good Grief. We hope that the stories shared today have inspired and empowered you on your own journey of resilience. If you want to dive deeper into the themes of trauma, tragedy, and survival, be sure to check out my memoir, The Day I Became the Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival. In this book, I shared my own raw and honest experiences, offering insights and strategies for overcoming life's toughest challenges. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or listen to it on Audible. Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful stories to light and spread a message of hope and resilience. Stay tuned for more incredible stories on our next episode. Until then, remember, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and good grief.